Governing Pakistan is not an easy task, considering that we have so many, problems, both of the economy and other matters. But if I were to prioritize them, I mean, I find three major challenges for Nawaz Sharif to handle. The first one relates to the economy. We've had a perennial energy crisis in Pakistan for the last 6 years now. And obviously, it is linked to the fact that the government of Pakistan cannot pay the independent power producers enough money to generate power. We have the plants, we have the capacity, but it's the government which has not been managing the debt. And so there's a debt which accumulates, and it's called the circular debt. So I think managing that would be a major challenge. And for that, additional money has to be raised through taxation or through other expenditures. So that's one. The second challenge that Nawaz Sharif faces is obviously, the issue of militancy and extremism, which are linked to the state capacity, which has dwindled over the past so many years. So we have a situation where in the north west of the country we have militant groups like the Taliban operating, both the Pakistani faction and the Afghan factions. And then we have, in the Punjab, we have sectarian outfits which are linked to Taliban, and then we have the separatists, the insurgents. So, in all these three areas, you need both a political solution as well as the capacity of the state to manage and enforce law. That's the second challenge. And I think the third challenge that he faces, of course, to me, is the immediate issue of how to handle Afghanistan, especially when the NATO troops are going to be pulled out in 2014. When that happens, there is going to be a vacuum in Afghanistan, and various factions are going to be fighting for power. And so, what would Nawaz Sharif do? How would he, demonstrate his leadership? Because if there's a civil war in Afghanistan, there will be a spillover in Pakistan, and the situation would get even more complicated. So these are the three challenges that he faces now. But of course, there's a long list, and there are other issues that need to be handled. During the election campaign, the key issue was that, the TTP had given out these threats, and Nawaz Sharif was taking this populist line of talking to the militants to secure peace. You see, this kind of line has been popularized uh, by the center-right politicians, Imran Khan being the chief architect of that. Nawaz Sharif during the election campaign was very worried that Imran Khan may not take away that particular vote bank or the support, traditionally Nawaz Sharif's support base. So there he was going an extra mile to, appease the kind of lobbies which call for talking to the Taliban or other militant groups. So perhaps a mix of solutions would have to be found. But if Nawaz Sharif gives in to these groups, then obviously he would be ceding political space, even for himself, for his party, and because these groups want to march forward and capture Pakistani state. I mean, their objective, like the Al Qaeda objective, is to gain power and at the expense of the Pakistani state. So Nawaz Sharif will have to, take a very tough choice here. He may have to do some tightrope walking, but there is no option but to deal with this issue and not be vague or ambiguous about it. I think absolutely. I think trading with India is something that Nawaz Sharif has always been very supportive of and has always said, him being a businessman realizes that, trading with India, Pakistan gains, its industry gains, and so therefore we can improve the situation like that. But let me also add something here. Uh, you know, the on the economic side, Nawaz Sharif has a good team, and at least in terms of management, we may see some sort of improvements. But in terms of undertaking structural reform, the kind of taxation reform Pakistan needs, the kind of reform of its inefficient public sector corporations that needs to be carried out. For that, he would have to build a consensus within the political spectrum, within all political parties, and then proceed onwards. For that, I don't think whether that is going to happen anytime soon, but if he can make a difference through better management and through undertaking some structural reforms, he may be able to do it. One good thing which is going in his favor is that he's got good numbers in the parliament, which will allow him to, sort of act in a decisive manner. But let's see how he proceeds. I mean, it's too early for us to say whether he'll be a huge success or a huge failure, frankly, because he's just not even taken over yet. Nawaz Sharif already has a simple majority whereby he can form a government, on the basis of a simple majority. He has a simple majority because the, 20 odd independents are moving his way, as the reports indicate. There are certain smaller nationalist parties from Balochistan and the party from Sindh with a few seats which are also moving towards him. And so basically, his numbers are fine. I mean, he hasn't got a two-thirds for sure. And, in these times, I don't think parties can be looking for a two-thirds majority anyway, because the country like India is too diverse and too split, and it's a federation anyway. He may enter into an alliance with MQM, just for the sake of keeping Karachi peaceful, because the problem in Karachi is that if MQM like parties which represent Karachi with all their problems and issues, if they're not in the process of mainstream governance and if they're outside, then it becomes very complicated for any federal government to maintain order in Karachi. And Karachi is like the economic nerve center of Pakistan, generates a bulk of its taxes. The stock exchange, indicates the economic barometer. Yeah, obviously, Balochistan is a very tricky issue. First of all, there are genuine grievances, long held grievances in Balochistan against central group, and they feel that they don't get the sort of natural resources. And then of late, with the murder of Mr. Bukti in 2007, things even became worse. And, there was, sorry, earlier, and things, the insurgency was sort of fueled. So I think the first good sign is that some of the nationalist parties are now participating in the election, and Nawaz Sharif has reached out to them. He's becoming kind of, entering into an alliance with them, which bodes rather well for the province. So I think what would be required is that, there should be a representative government in Balochistan. Whatever grievances are within the Federation of Pakistan, they need to be addressed. And then bringing back the kind of estranged leaders of smaller groups who are outside Pakistan into the mainstream and coming together to a political compromise where Balochistan's, issues can be addressed maybe through another constitutional amendment, through a special amendment, through special features that has to be done. But at the same time, Pakistani state does think that there is foreign interference in Balochistan. The previous government has been saying that, and of course, the name of India comes in that list. The name of US also comes in that list. Afghanistan is also blamed. Now, so far, the evidence for that has not been presented, but there are anecdotal, circumstantial, small pieces of evidence which are there. So there is a foreign policy dimension there as well. So with a stable Afghanistan, with a good regional compact in Afghanistan, the situation in Balochistan can be tackled, and with by giving all the rights to the Baloch people, to the province, by giving them full autonomy, adequate share of the resources they generate, perhaps this situation can be arrested. And that's why Baloch leadership is talking to a Punjabi, Nawaz Sharif, because they think if there can be a solution to Balochistan within the framework of Pakistan, then it can be mediated through a Punjabi leader and not from another smaller province leader. Perhaps that's what's going on here. You see, the issue of minorities is a bit more complex because, unfortunately, the PML-N's government in the Punjab did not have a stellar record on the minorities and their rights because there were two or three ghastly incidents against the Christian community. There was a major attack on the Ahmadiyya place of worship in Lahore, where Ahmadi community members were praying and they were attacked by militants, and later they even accepted the responsibility, but there has been little progress in terms of an FIR or in terms of doing something about it. So they would really have to improve that image. But you see, again, this is linked to the earlier discussion we were having of the conservative support base that Nawaz Sharif has, and which also makes him handle the sectarian outfits, the Islamist outfits cautiously. So that it is those outfits who go out and attack the Christians or the Shias or the Ahmadis. As a leader, as a statesman, he has to say very clearly to Pakistanis that all Pakistanis are equal, whatever their religion may be, and the state has to be a neutral arbiter of their rights, and there can be no compromise, no negotiation on violence or discrimination. So I think that would be the real test of his leadership. It's a countrywide problem, and the problem has to do with the ideology of hate and the groups which perpetrate and sort of advance this particular ideology, brainwash people, spread hate material, give hateful sermons across the country, and they go unchecked. Nobody touches them. So that kind of regulatory strengthening would also be required from the Sharif administration. I'm not really sure about Imran Khan. I mean, of course, Nawaz Sharif has made a very good gesture, in his victory speech on the night of the election. He said he has forgiven all those people who said nasty things about him, etc., abused him. Imran also made sort of, kind of cautious, neutral statements after the election. But, Imran Khan's politics is all about capturing that particular support base that Nawaz Sharif has. It is the same urban, middle class Punjab support base that he's also eyeing. In this election, he vigorously to back their votes, and he was quite successful. PTI, people are saying, oh, PTI lost the election. It did not, because you see, Imran Khan had one seat in 2002. In 2013, his party has over 30 seats, or more than 35 seats, or 33. I mean, the final tally has to be issued by the Election Commission. So, I mean, it's a 30-time increase in a matter of a decade. And his party has polled millions of votes. And, there's a young cadre who's backing Imran Khan, particularly from the educated urban sort of families. Often upper middle class, or those who want dynastic politics to go away. So in that sense, I don't foresee that Imran Khan is going to be that conciliatory, because he would like to give a tough opposition to Nawaz, so that he builds his own base and credibility in the years to come. And if he does that, he may, engineer a midterm election, of course, but Nawaz has good numbers now. So I think Imran's strategy would be to go ahead and, be aggressive and eye the next election in 2018 to get a majority. Where reconciliation will happen and is most likely is with the Pakistan People's Party, which controls the Senate, the upper house, as you have Rajya Sabha in India, and the upper house has to clear most of the legislation that the lower house, i.e. the Lok Sabha, of equivalent in Pakistan called the National Assembly or the Qawmi Assembly,
Mm-hmm.
passes.
Mm-hmm.
And now a very strong constitutional amendment, the 18th Amendment, where the Senate has increased roles. So it would be a necessity for Nawaz Sharif to enter into a reconciliatory cooperative agreement with the PPP at least for 2 years
Mm-hmm.
to have a smooth sailing in the Senate. So that is how it's going to happen. I foresee, uh, and about the kind of legacy that Benazir Bhutto
Mm-hmm.
left for Pakistan, because both Nawaz Sharif and Benazir Bhutto
Mm-hmm.
are signatories to a very important document which
Mm-hmm.
often people ignore in Pakistan. It's called the Charter of Democracy,
Mm-hmm.
signed, before Benazir Bhutto came to Pakistan, or I think even earlier, late 2006 to 2007, by which both parties agreed that they would not repeat the mistakes they made in the 1990s
Mm-hmm.
when they brought each other in, made deals with the establishment or the ISI,
Mm-hmm.
and harmed the cause of democracy. So that document is still in operation. A lot of people in India think that Pakistan is this where democracy cannot take root, where only dictatorship works, or the military rules, and there are jihadists and Islamists on every street. The civilians are always going to be weak in Pakistan. Democracy cannot take root. Let's talk to the military, blah blah. So I think it is time for India to also revise it's especially those who set the policy parameters and the policy engagers, if I were to use that term, that Pakistan is becoming turning into a civilian democracy. Nawaz Sharif has made very strong statements on civil-military balance,
Mm-hmm.
on peace with India, and it is time to give Pakistan's Democrats a chance.
Mm-hmm.
All political parties in this campaign did not mention the word Kashmir even once. That is quite telling. They did not even mention India at all. Sarabjit Singh incident and then Sanaullah's unfortunate and tragic, beating in Indian jail, in a jail in Jammu, took place right in the middle of the election campaign. But even the so-called center-right parties like the PTI and Nawaz Sharif's party did not make an issue out of that.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, we saw in India that the BJP exploited that issue to its as much as it could. In some of the Indian sections of Indian media, also drummed up this whole idea of these rogue Pakistanis, killing our prisoners,
Mm-hmm.
and in 2 days, the rogue prisoners in Jammu jail had killed a Pakistani or beaten him to pulp. So there is a consensus in Pakistan's Democrats and political parties of making a serious engagement with India. Of course, our core issues and our priorities, here cannot change overnight. Pakistanis are not going to give up the Kashmir, whatever cause it so soon. But issue is that it is time to take Pakistan's democratic impulses seriously and not typecast it as it has always been, across the border. Sadly, I have to say this because I want people to hear this, and maybe some will not like what I'm saying, and it's all right. Democratic expression and free speech always enrich the debates.